And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Thank you for joining us for the aviation portion of this broadcast. This is your outlook for Wednesday for IFR flight conditions, which are denoted in red, which is lower ceilings and lower visibility for airplanes. So you can see we have, with two systems, we have a low impacting the Aleutians, and meanwhile we have a separate low impacting the Gulf of Alaska. So low ceilings along much of the coastal areas in the state. Meanwhile, in much of the interior for your Wednesday morning, we are going to be seeing much better visibilities for your flying on Wednesday morning. Wednesday afternoon, you can see the systems weaken a little bit. We do have slightly better visibility in western Bering as that system moves towards the east. But again, expect low ceilings and visibilities across into parts of the Panhandle and across much of the Gulf of Alaska coast. For your Thursday morning, again, we are going to be seeing widespread IFR conditions associated with that low pressure system and even some low clouds and visibilities along the Chukchi Sea coast. Same thing for your Gulf of Alaska, where again, we're going to have lower visibilities into the Panhandle Thursday morning, associated with that low pressure system as it weakens and moves in towards the interior. By Thursday afternoon, conditions will mix out a little bit and we'll see some improvement across the area by Thursday afternoon. But again, perhaps a few showers along the mountains and valleys of the interior. Let's look at your passes. For Wednesday, for Anuktivik Pass, we're looking at VFR conditions. Again, Adigan Pass are expecting VFR conditions across much of the pass for Wednesday. Lake Clark, we're expecting MVFR conditions. For Rainy, MVFR conditions are expected Wednesday. Isabel Pass, we're expecting VFR conditions. In Tasta, we're also expecting VFR conditions. Tahina, we're also expecting VFR conditions below MVFR conditions as you go towards the west. So be careful of some lower clouds as you go in the western part of the pass. Same story for Portage. We're expecting IFR conditions in the morning and improvements towards MVFR conditions, but throughout the day conditions will be better in the western portion of the entrance. For Wednesday, Chilkoot and White Passes are expected to start out as IFR conditions, but improve to MVFR by the afternoon hours. Let's take a look at your freezing levels across much of the state. Again, associated with that low pressure system, we are seeing 4,000 foot ceilings, freezing levels at 4,000 feet. So cooler conditions associated with that low pressure system. Again, as you go towards our high pressure ridge area across the Yukon and into central Alaska, we're seeing higher freezing levels, about 10,000 feet and then 8,000 feet. So definitely warmer conditions as you move in towards the interior. Meanwhile, our freezing levels at the surface are far up along the North Arctic coast. Let's look at your icing concerns. Again, with that system moving in, it's going to be bringing a lot of rain into portions of along the Alaska Gulf of Alaska and into the Panhandle. Meanwhile, again, we're going to see widespread isolated icing associated with that weakening low in the Bering. So again, much of the state at risk for at least isolated moderate icing to considerable isolated moderate along the Gulf Coast as that system moves inland and brings a lot of rain with it. For our jet stream, again, a fairly decent jet stream for this time of year. We're looking at 120 knots across the central Aleutians. Again, this is at 30,000 feet. We also have a low pressure system. Again, it's centered along the Alaska Peninsula and a ridge of high pressure located in the interior. And we also have a jet of about 95 knots up across portions into the Kamchatka Peninsula. As we go lower at 9,000 feet, again, we still have remnants of that jet. It's at about 45 knots as you go into 9,000 feet. We also have a jet across portions of Prince William Sound of about 40 knots. As we go down lower into 3,000 feet, the jet weakens. We're just looking at winds of about maybe 20 or 30 knots at 3,000 feet. For your turbulence for Wednesday, again, associated with that system moving in along the coast, is going to have some gusty winds. So some considerable moderate turbulence along the Gulf of Alaska coast and through some of the passes along the Alaska Peninsula. Meanwhile, associated with that low out near the Bering, we are expecting widespread turbulence associated with those weak jets as we go west.